Most people think danger is random. Wrong place, wrong time. That's what we tell ourselves because it's easier. But what if it's not random? What if someone chooses you, tracks you, studies you, writes things down, shares it with others, and by the time you realize it, you've already been passed along, added to a list? I didn't know I was on it. Not at first. Not when I took the job, not when I packed my tools, not even when I checked into that motel. It started 3 weeks earlier. Different state, different job. I was working a late shift at a distribution warehouse outside a mid-sized city, overnight repair, just me and one supervisor who mostly stayed in the office. Around 2 a.m., I stepped outside for air. That's when I noticed the car. Parked across the street. Engine running, lights off. At first, I didn't think much of it, until I realized it hadn't moved. Not when I came out, not 10 minutes later, not even when I went back inside and checked again through the loading dock window. Just sitting there. I told the supervisor. He shrugged. Probably someone waiting. Waiting for what? There was nothing open. No businesses, no houses nearby. I went back to work, tried to ignore it. But around 3:15 a.m., the power flickered. Just once. Long enough for everything to shut off. Long enough for the emergency lights to kick in. And in that moment, when the building went dark, I saw something through the front glass. Movement. Someone walking across the parking lot. Slow. Direct. Toward the building. The lights came back on. No one there. No car. Nothing. The supervisor checked the cameras. He couldn't find anything. But when he rewound the footage, there was a glitch. About 30 seconds missing, right when the power flickered. We laughed it off, said it was just bad wiring. But before I left that morning, I noticed something. On the whiteboard near the office, a list of delivery schedules, driver names, times, and at the very bottom, written in smaller handwriting, my name. No time next to it. No reason for it to be there. Just written. I asked the supervisor. He said he didn't write it. I erased it. Didn't think about it again. Until the next job. 3 weeks later. That's when things started connecting. The motel was in a town I'd never been to before. Small, quiet, the kind of place where people notice outsiders. I checked in around 8 p.m. Normal process, nothing strange. But when I got to my room, the TV was already on. Static. No signal. I turned it off, set my bag down, and that's when I saw it. On the desk, a piece of paper, folded. I don't remember seeing it when I walked in. I picked it up, opened it, and my stomach dropped. It was a list. Names. About 10 of them, with notes next to each. Drives alone. Night shift. Stays multiple days. Room access easy. And halfway down, my name. With one word next to it. Confirmed. I froze. Tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was left by someone else. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't for me to find. I wasn't supposed to see it. I checked the rest of the room. Closet, bathroom, under the bed. Nothing. But the feeling changed. That same feeling from the warehouse, like I was being watched from somewhere I couldn't see. Around 10 p.m., I heard a car pull in. I looked through the curtain. Different car, not the same one from before, but the way it sat there, engine running, lights off, felt exactly the same. Someone inside, not moving, waiting. I stepped back. That's when my phone buzzed. No number, just a message. You erased it last time. My blood went cold. I stared at the screen. Another message. That was a mistake. I backed away from the window, locked the door, checked the bathroom. That's when I noticed something new. The vent, above the mirror. The screws were loose, like it had been opened recently. I grabbed a chair, climbed up, and slowly pushed the vent cover aside. Inside, darkness, but not empty. There was something in there. A small object. I reached in, pulled it out. A phone. Old. Cheap. Still on. Recording. I dropped it immediately, and that's when I heard it. From above. Movement. Inside the ceiling. Crawling. Slow. Direct. Toward my room. I stepped back, heart pounding. Then, a voice. Muffled, but clear enough. Don't touch that. I ran, grabbed my keys, phone, didn't pack anything else, opened the door, and froze. Because standing across the lot was a man, holding a piece of paper, looking at it, then looking at me, matching, confirming. He smiled, not wide, not exaggerated, just enough to show he recognized me from the list. And then another man stepped out of the car, and another. 3 of them now, all looking at me, calm, like this wasn't rushed, like they had time. I didn't wait. I ran to my truck, started it, and as I pulled out, I saw something in the rearview mirror. One of them, holding up the paper, crossing something out. My name. I drove for hours, didn't stop, didn't answer calls, didn't go back. But here's the part that still keeps me up. 2 days later, I got a message. Different number. Just a photo. Blurry. Taken from a distance. Of me. Standing outside that warehouse 3 weeks earlier. At the bottom, one line. Passed along. That's when I understood. This wasn't one place. It wasn't even one group. It wasn't even one list. It was a system. People watching, recording, sharing, handing names off from one town to the next. And once you're on it, you don't get removed. You just move down the line.
You've already heard what happens when someone notices, when they run, when they get out just in time. But that's not the whole story, because most people don't notice. Most people don't run. And some stay just long enough to understand what's happening, right before it's too late. This is about one of them. Her name wasn't supposed to matter. That's the first thing you need to understand. Because names get written down, tracked, passed around. But I'm going to call her Lena, because someone should. Lena was a traveling nurse, contract work, 3 to 4 weeks at a time in different towns, different hospitals, different schedules. Alone most of the time, which made her perfect. She arrived in town on a Sunday, checked into a mid-range motel near the hospital. Not the cheapest, not the worst. The kind of place you'd trust just enough not to question things. Her first 2 nights were normal. Work, sleep, repeat. It started on the 3rd night. She came back late, around 11:40 p.m., exhausted. As she walked to her room, she noticed a man standing near the vending machines. Not using them, not moving, just standing, watching. She gave a polite nod, kept walking. He didn't respond, didn't blink, didn't move until she unlocked her door, and just before she stepped inside, she heard it. Footsteps, following her. She turned quickly. The man was gone. The vending machine hummed quietly. Nothing else. She locked the door, double-checked it, told herself she was just tired. That night, she had trouble sleeping, not because of noise, because of something else. A feeling, like she wasn't alone in the room. Not in a dramatic way, not in a panic-inducing way. Just wrong. Around 2 a.m., she woke up. No sound, no movement, just that feeling again. She sat up slowly, looked around. Everything looked normal, until she saw the bathroom light on. She was certain she had turned it off. She got up, walked toward it, pushed the door open. Empty. But on the mirror, there was something new. A mark, small, like a fingerprint, right at eye level. From the inside, she stared at it, then wiped it away. Didn't think much of it. That was her first mistake. The next day, she worked a double shift, didn't get back until after midnight. As she pulled into the motel, she noticed a car she hadn't seen before, parked near her room. Engine off, lights off, but someone inside. She could feel it. That same stillness, that same waiting. She parked anyway, got out, walked toward her door, and as she passed the car, the window rolled down, just slightly, and a voice said, "You're in 214, right?" She stopped, didn't turn around, slowly said, "Yeah." Silence. Then, "You work nights." Her stomach tightened. She didn't respond. Kept walking, unlocked her door, went inside, locked it. This time, she checked everything. Closet, bathroom, under the bed. Nothing. But when she sat down, she noticed something on the desk. A folded paper. She didn't remember seeing it earlier. She opened it, and immediately felt cold. It was a list. Names, descriptions, notes, and near the bottom, Lena, night shift, alone, confirmed. Her hand started shaking. She grabbed her phone. No signal. She moved toward the door and froze because she heard it. A soft sound from the wall. A faint tapping. Slow, measured, like someone knocking from the other side. She stepped back. The tapping stopped, then started again. Closer, lower, moving, tracking her. She ran to the bathroom, locked the door, turned on the light, and that's when she saw it. The vent, open, just slightly. She stared at it, and something inside moved. Not fast, not sudden, just enough, like someone shifting, watching. She screamed, ran out of the bathroom, grabbed her keys, opened the door, and saw him, the man from the vending machines, standing right outside, smiling. Not wide, not exaggerated, just enough, like he'd been waiting. She slammed the door, locked it, backed away, heart racing. Then, a second voice, from outside, "You should have left earlier." Another voice, from the wall, "We told them you'd stay." Her breathing broke. She grabbed a chair, jammed it under the handle, and then, the power went out. Complete darkness. No emergency lights, no backup, just silence. And then, movement. From everywhere. The wall, the ceiling, the bathroom. Not rushing, not panicked, controlled.
Like a routine, she ran to the window, tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. Something held it in place, from the outside. Then, a hand pressed against the glass, slowly, fingers spreading, blocking her way out. She screamed again, and that's when the door handle moved. Slowly, the chair shook, held for a second, then snapped. The door opened. Just a crack. Enough. She ran for the bathroom again, but this time, something came out of the vent. Not fully, just an arm, reaching, grabbing. She didn't make it to the door. 3 days later, her car was still in the lot. Room 214 was cleaned. New sheets, new towels. No signs of struggle. No report filed. No investigation. Just another empty room, ready for the next person. But here's what matters. A week later, in a different town, at a different motel, another someone checked into a room and found a piece of paper, a list, names, descriptions, notes, and one new entry, Lena, compliant. And then, underneath it, a new name, someone else, already marked, already confirmed.
Most people think danger looks obvious. A stranger in the dark, a knock at the door, a feeling that something isn't right. But what if you're not the target? What if you're the one helping them, without knowing, without choosing? Because sometimes the system doesn't just watch, it uses people. And by the time you realize what you've been doing, it's already too late to undo it. His name was Aaron, long-haul truck driver, 10 years on the road, clean record, quiet life. The kind of guy who kept to himself, did his job, didn't ask questions, which is exactly why they chose him. It started with a simple job, nothing unusual. Pick up a sealed cargo unit from a distribution yard, drive it overnight across state lines, drop it at a designated location. No special instructions, no red flags, just another run. When Aaron arrived at the yard, something felt off. Not wrong enough to leave, but enough to notice. The place was empty, no staff, no lights in the office, but the gate was open, and the trailer was already loaded, backed perfectly into place, waiting. There was paperwork clipped to the side, minimal details, just route, delivery point, do not open. That wasn't unusual. Plenty of sealed shipments work like that. But at the bottom, there was something else. A handwritten note. Do not stop unless instructed. That part wasn't standard. Still, Aaron didn't question it. He hooked the trailer, did his checks, started driving. The first hour was normal. Highway empty, radio low. Then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Message. Maintain speed. He frowned, ignored it. A minute later, another message. We can see you slowing down. His grip tightened on the wheel. He checked his mirrors. Nothing unusual. No cars behind him, no headlights. Just darkness. He sped up slightly. Didn't respond. Didn't want to. Another message came. Good. That's when the unease started turning into something else. Something heavier. He drove for another hour. Then he heard it. A sound from the trailer. Faint. A thud. Then silence. He told himself it was cargo shifting. Happens all the time. But then, another sound. This time, clearer. A knock. From inside the trailer. Aaron's chest tightened. He adjusted the mirror, tried to see back there. Nothing. Just the closed doors, locked, sealed.
Then another knock, 3 times, slow, deliberate. Not cargo, not random. Someone was inside. His hands started shaking. He reached for his phone. Before he could dial, it buzzed again. Do not stop. He stared at the message. Another one followed. Do not open it. His breathing got heavier. Then, the final message. You are not responsible. That's when something broke. Because that message didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like a warning. Aaron slowed the truck. The knocking came again, louder now, more desperate. Then, a voice, muffled, barely audible. Please. Aaron's foot hit the brake, hard. The truck slowed to a stop on the side of the road. Silence. No more messages, no more buzzing, just his breathing and the quiet road. He sat there for a full minute, then got out, walked to the back, his hands trembling. He stared at the trailer doors, the seal still intact. He hesitated, then broke it, pulled the doors open, and stepped back. Inside, darkness, then movement, a figure, curled in the corner, a person, barely conscious, thin, weak, eyes barely open, looking at him, not surprised, not relieved, just tired, like they'd been waiting too long. Aaron climbed inside, kneeled beside him. Hey, I got you. You're okay. The person shook their head weakly, tried to speak, but the words came out broken. No, you don't. Aaron frowned. What? The person grabbed his sleeve, weak grip, but urgent. You brought me. Aaron froze. What are you talking about? The person's eyes filled with something deeper than fear. Recognition. You picked me up. His stomach dropped. That's when he noticed it. Underneath them, a piece of paper, folded. He picked it up, opened it, and felt the world tilt. A list, names, descriptions, notes, and one line. Transport confirmed, compliant driver. Below it, his name, Aaron. Next to it, reliable. His hand started shaking. He backed away. The person tried to grab him again. Don't close it. But his body moved on instinct. He stepped out, closed the doors, locked them, and stood there, breathing hard, trying to process it. His phone buzzed again. He didn't want to check, but he did. Thank you. Then, continue route. He looked at the trailer, then at the road ahead, then back at the trailer. The knocking started again, weaker this time, slower, fading. Aaron stood there for a long time, long enough for the knocking to stop, long enough for the silence to settle in. Then he got back in the truck and started driving. He completed the delivery, didn't speak to anyone, didn't report anything, just left the trailer where instructed and drove away. 3 days later, he quit, sold his truck, disappeared. No forwarding address, no contact, nothing. But the system didn't lose him, because weeks later, in another state, at another distribution yard, a new driver arrived, checked his paperwork, and saw a note at the bottom, handwritten. Previous driver, reliable, route safe, continue. And clipped to the side, a second sheet, a list with new names and one familiar entry, Aaron. This time marked differently. Understands.
There's a specific kind of fear you only feel once. Not the kind that makes you run, not the kind that makes you scream, the kind that settles in your chest when you realize You were never alone. Not when you checked in, not when you locked the door, not even when you thought you were safe. Because some places don't need to break in. They're already inside. And by the time you notice, they've been there longer than you have. This happened during a stretch of work I don't talk about much anymore. Not because it was unusual, but because it wasn't. That's what makes it worse. I was traveling alone through the Midwest, working overnight maintenance on refrigeration units for small grocery chains. It meant long drives, cheap motels, and sleeping during hours when most people are awake. You learn to adapt, to ignore things, to stop asking questions. That week, I was sent to a town so small it didn't even show up properly on GPS. Just a name, a dot, and one road leading in and out. The motel was right off that road, single floor, L-shaped, 12 rooms, all identical, all facing inward toward a gravel lot. There were no other cars. I remember that clearly because I sat in my truck for a full minute after parking, just looking, counting, making sure I wasn't missing something. Nothing. I checked in anyway. The front desk was unattended, just a bell, and a key already sitting there. Room 3. No paperwork, no receipt, no person, just the key. That should have been enough for me to leave, but I didn't. Because when you do this job long enough, you stop trusting your instincts. You tell yourself everything has an explanation, even when it doesn't. Room 3 was near the center of the building. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and immediately felt it. Not a smell, not a sound, a presence. The air felt used, like someone had just been there, not hours ago, not earlier that day, seconds. I turned on the lights, checked the bathroom, closet, under the bed. Nothing. But the feeling didn't go away. It just shifted, like it moved somewhere else in the room. I locked the door, set my bag down, and tried to ignore it. By 11 p.m., I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi, just silence. And then, a sound, a soft click, from inside the room. Not the door, not the window, behind me. I turned slowly. The closet door was open, just a few inches. I was certain I had closed it. I got up, walked toward it, each step slower than the last, and pulled it open. Empty. But the floor inside was scuffed. Fresh marks. Like something or someone had been standing there, shifting their weight, waiting. I closed it again, harder this time. Locked it. Then dragged a chair in front of it. That's when I heard the second sound. From the bathroom. Water. Running. Just a thin stream. I hadn't used the sink. I hadn't even turned it on. I walked over, turned the handle off, and that's when I saw it. In the mirror. Behind me. The bed. And the indentation on it. Fresh. Like someone had just sat down. I turned around instantly. Nothing. But the mattress was still slowly rising, returning to its shape, like weight had just been removed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the chair, facing the door, facing the closet, facing everything at once. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow. Steady. Close. Too close. I held my breath, listened. It stopped. Then, it started again. From a different part of the room. Like it was moving, circling, staying just out of sight. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept it across the room. Nothing. But the breathing didn't stop. It just adjusted.
matching me. Every time I moved, it moved. Every time I stopped, it stopped. Like it was learning me, studying me. By morning, it was gone, or at least quiet. I left for work, didn't think about it, didn't let myself. Because if I did, I wouldn't go back. But I had to. When I returned that evening, there was a car in the lot, parked directly in front of my room. I hadn't seen it before. No lights, no nothing. But the driver's door was slightly open. I walked past it, slowly, and as I did, I heard something from inside. A whisper. "You came back." I froze, looked inside. Empty. But the seat was indented, like someone was sitting there, watching me. I went into my room, locked the door, didn't turn on the lights, just stood there, listening. And then I heard it again. Inside. Not outside, not the walls. Inside the room. That same breathing, but closer this time, right behind me. I turned. Nothing. But the air shifted, like something had moved quickly, out of sight. That's when I realized something I hadn't before. It wasn't following me. It wasn't entering the room. It was already there. It had been there. The entire time. Watching. Waiting. Learning. That night, I didn't sit. I didn't lie down. I stood in the corner, facing the entire room. And slowly, over hours, I noticed something I hadn't before. Things were moving. Not fast, not obvious, but enough. The chair I moved earlier was no longer against the closet. The bathroom door opened slightly on its own, and the bed had 2 indentations now. Not 1, 2. Like something was sitting there, together, watching me. I don't know how long I stood there, but at some point I blinked, and for just a second, I saw them. Not clearly, not fully, just shapes, sitting on the bed, facing me, still, waiting. And when I opened my eyes again, they were gone. But the indentation stayed. I left before sunrise, didn't pack everything, didn't check out, just walked out, got in my truck, and drove. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. And I never went back to that town. But here's the part I can't explain. A week later, I was home, finally sleeping in my own bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night. For no reason. No sound. No movement. Just that feeling. That same pressure in my chest. I looked around my room. Everything was normal. Until I looked at the chair in the corner and saw it. A slight indentation. Like someone had just leaned forward, watching me sleep. And then, from somewhere in the dark, I heard it again. That same breathing. Slow. Patient. Familiar. And that's when I understood something I wish I hadn't. I didn't leave it there. It came with me.
I've worked on the road for almost 8 years. Different states, different towns, different motels. You get used to it. The noise, the smells, the feeling that something just isn't right. But you learn to ignore it, because most of the time, it is nothing. Just your brain filling in the silence. But this time, it wasn't nothing. This time, someone knew exactly where I was staying before I even got there.
This happened late October. I was sent out to a job in a rural part of West Virginia, about an hour off the nearest highway. The kind of place where GPS cuts out halfway there, where gas stations close before sunset, and where, after dark, the roads feel wrong, too quiet, too empty. My company booked me into a motel just outside a small town. The listing looked normal enough online, but when I pulled in, something felt off immediately. There were about 15 rooms. Only 3 had cars parked outside. One of them looked like it hadn't moved in years. Flat tires, dust on the windshield. I checked in around 6:40 p.m. The man at the front desk barely spoke, didn't smile, didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and said, "Room 6." That was it. No small talk, no directions, nothing. As I turned to leave, I noticed something strange. There was a clipboard on the counter, a handwritten list, room numbers, license plates, descriptions. And next to room 6, my plate number was already written down. I froze, looked back at the guy. He wasn't even looking at me anymore, just staring at the TV behind the counter. I almost said something, but I didn't. I told myself maybe the booking system logged it somehow. Maybe they had cameras. Maybe it wasn't a big deal. But deep down, I knew that wasn't normal. My room was at the far end of the building, room 6, right next to the corner. One side had a neighboring room, the other just darkness. Inside, the place was clean but felt untouched, like it had been prepared, not used. I dropped my bag, locked the door, and checked the windows. That's when I noticed something else. The curtain was slightly open, just enough to see out. And when I looked through it, I saw someone standing near the road, far enough to be hard to make out, but close enough to see they were facing the motel, standing completely still, watching. I stepped back immediately, closed the curtain, locked the window. That feeling came back. That quiet pressure in your chest, like your instincts are trying to tell you something your brain doesn't want to accept. I left to grab food, didn't want to stay in that room too long. When I came back about 30 minutes later, that person was gone, but something else wasn't. A car parked 2 spaces down from my room, engine off, lights off. I didn't see it when I left. I got out slowly, looked inside as I walked past. Empty. No one in the driver's seat, no one in the back, but the engine was still warm. I could feel the heat coming off the hood as I passed it. I went inside my room and locked everything, double-checked the door, pushed a chair under the handle, something I hadn't done in years. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard footsteps outside, not walking past, not coming or going, just pacing, back and forth, stopping, then starting again, right outside my room. I turned off the TV, sat in silence, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then a knock, soft, controlled, not the kind of knock you ignore, the kind that waits for a response. I didn't answer. Another knock, slightly louder. Then a voice, low, calm. "We know you're in there." My stomach dropped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. "You left your lights on earlier. We saw you." There was a second voice now, quieter, closer to the door. "Open up. We just want to talk." I grabbed my phone, opened the dial pad, hovered over 911. The first voice spoke again. "You don't want to make this difficult." Then, "I've worked on the road for almost 8 years. Different states, different towns, different motels. You get used to it. The noise, the smells, the feeling that something just isn't right. But you learn to ignore it, because most of the time, it is nothing. Just your brain filling in the silence. But this time, it wasn't nothing. This time, someone knew exactly where I was staying before I even got there. This happened late October. I was sent out to a job in a rural part of West Virginia, about an hour off the nearest highway. The kind of place where GPS cuts out halfway there, where gas stations close before sunset, and where, after dark, the roads feel wrong, too quiet, too empty. My company booked me into a motel just outside a small town. The listing looked normal enough online, but when I pulled in, something felt off immediately. There were about 15 rooms. Only 3 had cars parked outside. One of them looked like it hadn't moved in years. Flat tires, dust on the windshield. I checked in around 6:40 p.m. The man at the front desk barely spoke, didn't smile, didn't ask questions, just handed me a key and said, "Room 6." That was it. No small talk, no directions, nothing. As I turned to leave, I noticed something strange. There was a clipboard on the counter, a handwritten list, room numbers, license plates, descriptions. And next to room 6, my plate number was already written down. I froze, looked back at the guy. He wasn't even looking at me anymore, just staring at the TV behind the counter. I almost said something, but I didn't. I told myself maybe the booking system logged it somehow. Maybe they had cameras. Maybe it wasn't a big deal. But deep down, I knew that wasn't normal. My room was at the far end of the building, room 6, right next to the corner. One side had a neighboring room, the other just darkness. Inside, the place was clean but felt untouched, like it had been prepared, not used. I dropped my bag, locked the door, and checked the windows. That's when I noticed something else. The curtain was slightly open, just enough to see out. And when I looked through it, I saw someone standing near the road, far enough to be hard to make out, but close enough to see they were facing the motel, standing completely still, watching. I stepped back immediately, closed the curtain, locked the window. That feeling came back, that quiet pressure in your chest, like your instincts are trying to tell you something your brain doesn't want to accept. I left to grab food, didn't want to stay in that room too long. When I came back about 30 minutes later, that person was gone, but something else wasn't. A car parked 2 spaces down from my room, engine off, lights off. I didn't see it when I left. I got out slowly, looked inside as I walked past. Empty. No one in the driver's seat, no one in the back, but the engine was still warm. I could feel the heat coming off the hood as I passed it. I went inside my room and locked everything, double-checked the door, pushed a chair under the handle, something I hadn't done in years. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard footsteps outside. Not walking past, not coming or going, just pacing, back and forth, stopping, then starting again, right outside my room. I turned off the TV, sat in silence, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then a knock, soft, controlled, not the kind of knock you ignore, the kind that waits for a response. I didn't answer. Another knock, slightly louder. Then a voice, low, calm. "We know you're in there." My stomach dropped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. "You left your lights on earlier. We saw you." There was a second voice now, quieter, closer to the door. "Open up. We just want to talk." I grabbed my phone, opened the dial pad, hovered over 911. The first voice spoke again. "You don't want to make this difficult." Then silence. No footsteps, no movement, nothing. I stayed frozen for what felt like an hour. Then, slowly, I looked through the pier hole. Nothing. Empty walkway. I waited another 10 minutes, then checked again. Still nothing. But when I turned back toward the room, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The bathroom door was slightly open. I was sure I had closed it. I walked toward it slowly. Every step felt heavier than the last. Pushed the door open. Nothing inside. But the window was unlocked, and the screen was bent outward, like someone had tested it from the outside. I locked it immediately, closed the door, backed away. That's when I heard it, a soft sound from the wall, behind the mirror, a faint scrape, then a tap, like someone lightly knocking from inside the wall. I stepped back, heart pounding. Then the tap came again, lower this time, moving, tracing along the wall, from the bathroom toward the bed. I grabbed my bag, didn't care what I left behind, went straight to the door, and froze, because on the floor, just inside the door, was a piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. I picked it up slowly.
I don't scare easily. I travel for work. I've stayed in places most people wouldn't spend 5 minutes in. But there's one motel I will never forget. Because for 2 nights, I was convinced the room across from mine was empty, until I realized someone inside had been watching me the entire time. This happened about a year before the last story. Different state, different job, same kind of town, small, quiet, almost lifeless after dark. I was working on a refrigeration unit behind a grocery store just off the highway. The job was supposed to take 2 days, so I checked into a cheap roadside motel nearby, the kind with doors facing each other across a narrow walkway, like a hallway, but outside. I got room 12, right across from room 11. The first thing I noticed? Room 11 looked abandoned. Curtains drawn tight, no lights, no car parked outside, nothing. Didn't think much of it. That first night, I got back around 9 p.m., tired, covered in grease. I microwaved something, sat on the bed, turned on the TV. At some point, I glanced at the window, and for a split second, I thought I saw movement in room 11, behind the curtain. Just a slight shift, like someone stepping back. I froze, stared at it. Nothing. Still. Dark. I told myself it was just the reflection from my TV, and moved on. Around midnight, I heard a door open. Not mine. Across from me. Room 11. I muted the TV. Listened. No voices, no footsteps leaving, just the sound of a door slowly closing again. The next morning, I checked outside. Still no car. No sign anyone had been there. I even looked at the door. No new marks, no nothing. It looked untouched. That's when it started bothering me. Later that day, I asked the front desk, tried to sound casual. "Hey, someone staying in room 11? The guy at the desk barely looked up. "Nope, that one's been empty for a while." I paused. "You sure?" He nodded. "Yeah, needs repairs. We don't rent it out." That didn't sit right. That night, I paid more attention. Every time I walked past that door, I felt it, that weird pressure, like someone standing just inches away on the other side, listening. Around 10:45 p.m., I turned off the lights in my room and sat in the dark, watching. At first, nothing. Then slowly, very slowly, the curtain in room 11 moved. Not a breeze, not random. It shifted, like fingers pulling it just enough to look out. And then I saw it, an eye, looking directly at me. I jumped back so hard I hit the dresser behind me. When I looked again, the curtain was still, closed, like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. Around 3 a.m., I heard something worse, a soft click from my door. I sat up, heart racing. Then another click, like someone gently testing the handle. I grabbed my phone, didn't move, didn't breathe. The handle slowly turned, just slightly, then stopped. Whoever was out there was being careful, quiet, patient. After a few seconds, the pressure on the handle released. Footsteps, slow, walking away, straight across the walkway to room 11. And then the sound of a door opening. That was it. I called the front desk immediately, told them someone was trying my door and that someone was definitely inside room 11. The same guy answered,
But this time, his voice changed. "Stay inside. Don't open the door." 5 minutes later, I heard him outside, talking to someone. Low voices, tense. Then a loud bang, like a door being forced open. And then silence. The next morning, I stepped outside. Room 11 was open. Inside, the place was destroyed. Dust everywhere. Old furniture stacked in the corner, clearly unused. But that wasn't the worst part. The manager pulled me aside, didn't meet my eyes, and said something I still think about. Sometimes people get in there. We try to keep it locked, but they find a way. I asked him if anyone was inside last night. He hesitated, then said, "No one we could find." That didn't make sense. I heard them. I saw them. They tried my door. Then I noticed something. The window in room 11 faced directly into mine, perfect angle. And on the inside of that window were marks, fingerprints, dozens of them, layered, smudged, right at eye level, like someone had been standing there for a long time, watching. I didn't stay the second night. Packed up, left before sunset. Didn't argue about the refund, didn't ask questions. Because here's the thing. It wasn't just someone breaking into an empty room. It was how comfortable they were, how quiet, how patient, like they'd done it before, like they knew exactly which room to pick. And the part I can't shake, if I hadn't stayed up that night, if I hadn't seen that eye behind the curtain, I probably would have been asleep when they came back to try my door again.
I've stayed in hundreds of motels for work. Most of them are forgettable, some are uncomfortable, but one made me realize something terrifying. Sometimes you're not just staying somewhere, you're being watched the entire time. And by the time you realize it, it's already too late. This happened last fall when I was sent to a small town in northern Pennsylvania for a refrigeration repair job. The kind of place where everything shuts down early, more empty buildings than open ones, and at night it feels like the town disappears. My company booked me into a roadside motel, the only one with vacancy. I arrived a little after 7 p.m. The place had about a dozen rooms, all facing the parking lot. Only a few cars were there. The office smelled like bleach and stale coffee. The woman at the front desk was in her 60s, friendly but distracted. She kept glancing past me, toward the parking lot. When she handed me the key, she said something strange. "For anyone knocks at night, don't open the door. Call the office. Don't get involved." She said it casually, like it was normal. I asked if the area was bad. She just smiled and said, "Sometimes drifters come around." That should have been my first warning. My room was second from the end. Old, worn, cigarette burns in the furniture, stains in the carpet. Nothing usual, just uncomfortable. I grabbed food from a nearby gas station and came back around 8. That's when I saw the truck. A dark green pickup, engine running, lights off. A man sat inside, completely still, hands on the wheel. He didn't look at me, not once. By 10:30, I was in bed. Around 11, I heard footsteps outside. At first, I ignored it, but then they stopped, right outside my door. No knock, no movement, just silence. Then the steps walked away. A minute later, they came back, stopped again. I checked the peephole. Nothing. Then came the knock. Soft, controlled, not random. I looked again. No one there. That's when something felt wrong. Around midnight, I heard metal scraping near the door. I slowly walked over and looked through the peephole. This time, I saw someone, crouched low, just the top of a dark cap and a shoulder, watching, waiting. Then, suddenly, they stood up and walked away fast. I called the office. The woman went quiet when I told her.
That silence said more than anything. A car drove through the lot minutes later, but whoever it was gone. I barely slept. At 5:15 a.m., my truck alarm went off. I looked outside. A man stood at my driver's door, half open. He turned and looked directly at my room, like he knew I was watching. Then he walked away. I called the police. They came, checked everything, and found nothing stolen. One officer didn't seem convinced. The older one did. Before leaving, he said something I didn't expect. If it happens again, don't open the door. Leave as soon as you can. But I didn't leave. I should have. That night, the green truck came back. Same spot, lights off, watching. Around 11 p.m., I heard tapping, not on the door, on the window. Slow, deliberate. Then something dragged down the glass, a fingernail or something like it. Then I heard the bathroom window move, and worse, the empty room next to mine opened, slowly, like someone unlocking it from the outside. There was movement inside, quiet, careful. Not a guest, someone trying not to be heard. I called 911, whispering, barely breathing. Then a loud hit on the wall behind my bed, like someone testing it. Then another, lower, closer. The bathroom window started opening. I ran and shoved it shut. Something pushed back from the outside. Not hard, but enough to feel it. Then came the knocking again. Soft, controlled, right at my door. But this time, there were multiple footsteps, more than one person. I jammed a chair under the door and waited. When the police arrived, they ran. Multiple sets of footsteps, not one. Officers found the window screen removed, pry marks on my truck, and signs of forced entry on the empty room. Then the older officer pulled me aside and told me the truth. This wasn't random. There had been other incidents. Men traveling alone, workers, targets, watched, followed, then approached at night. No one knew exactly what their end goal was, but everyone knew it wasn't robbery. As I packed to leave, I dropped my charger. It slid under the bed. When I reached for it, I found something else, a piece of paper, folded, hidden. On it, my room number, my license plate, written in pen. They hadn't just found me that night. They had been watching me for a while. I left that motel at 1 a.m. and drove nearly 2 hours straight home. I didn't finish the job, didn't go back, didn't ask questions. Because the truth is, some places don't just have bad reputations. They have patterns, systems, people waiting. And the worst part is, if I had opened that door just once, just out of curiosity, I don't think I'd be here telling this story.